Hey everyone, Dave here. So today I want to get into creating a NEP-5 token with C#. So what I have going here is a simple class library. So my previous videos I talked a little bit about how to do this as a class library versus doing it through the Neo plugin to Visual Studio. So I've done this as a class library. So basic class library, I've added a NuGet package to the neo.smartcontract.framework. I just have a class here that inherits from smart contract. And then I've put this in here, this public static object main, and then with two parameters to it. So it takes in a method and an args. So the way Neo works is it's going to always call this main method with our first parameter that we pass to it, which is going to be the method we want to run. So if we look at our NEP-5 standard, we can see here there's a few methods: totalSupply, name, symbol, decimals, balance of, and transfer. So we're going to start with name and symbol because those are the easiest. So we're going to return back here tutorial token. Whoa, if I could spell. If method equals, I did something wrong there. Equals symbol, return, what would we call this? Probably just TT. Oh, and I crashed Visual Studio. Cool. Now it's going to complain because not all code paths are returning a value. So at this point here, we're just going to return false. So the other thing that I've done to this project here, I will show you this, is in our build events, I have a post build event command line that runs the Neo compiler debugger with the target path. So there's the Neo debugger called neon.exe that will output just an AVM file, but there's also this as part of the Neo debugger tools, their own compiler, and that's going to output a file that will be able to link the AVM bits to our source code. So I'm going to build this and hopefully we get a successful build. We did. It wrote out the AVM, but it also wrote out this debug.json. That is the secret sauce that makes us all map together. I'm going to flip over to the Neo debugger now. Come on, there we go. So I already had this file open, so it just asked if I wanted to reload it, but you can just go File, Open. You can see here is the code. And there's a few options that we can do here. So we can run main, and we don't have a totalSupply yet, but we do have a name parameter, so it has to be in quotes, and the args has to just be empty brackets. And we're going to debug that. So it ran it. The instruction count was 56. The result was tutorial token, what our token is named here. We can also step into the code here. So if we were to go symbol, we can step in and we can use F10 to step along with it here. Now, you're probably the first thing you expect to be able to do is hover over a variable and inspect it or see anything about it. You can't right click on it. You can't do anything. It doesn't give you any tool tips. This is just kind of a limitation of the debugger at this point anyways. Maybe they'll figure a way to do this at some point here, but you're never going to really see what this value is. You can look though at the stack here, and the first item on the stack here is symbol. That's what got passed in as the method name, but you know, it's symbol and then null would probably be our parameters, and then false, false, true. No idea what that is on the stack. But we can see here that it actually does get into this method and it does hit our return statement. So if you want to see how your code walks through the branches, this is a great tool. And then we're done. Instruction count was 76. Okay. So that is pretty straightforward. Hopefully I didn't go over that too fast, but a lot of the stuff was covered in my previous videos on setting up a development environment. So you can go and watch those. The next method I want to implement is how many decimals this token is going to have. Neo only works in whole numbers. So it's if we have something that sends, that does 2 decimal places, and we want to send 1 token, so we want to send 1.00, Neo is going to send 100, right? The clients, so the exchanges, the wallets, any other tools are going to do the math and say, okay, 100, 2 decimals in, okay, would be that. So because of that, when we return total supply, return, so let's say we want to have 1,000 tokens here. We actually have to add on now 1, 2 for our decimal places. A trick I like to use is the continuation character in C#, I believe that's what it's called, underscore, to separate out the whole part from the decimals. This gets compiled out. There's no magic to this, it just gets stripped out. So, okay. So now we will rebuild that again and we will flip over to the debugger, which will detect our changes. And now we've got a token that returns the name of it, returns the symbol. It's going to return how many decimal places, and total supply is how many tokens there are. So this is all things that usually like wallets will use to display your coin. So it may display it by the symbol first, and then if you hover, you'll get the full name. Things like that. And then it'll also know how to display it with the right number of decimal places. That did build. Oh. Let's get this back up there. Okay. So I just want to run total supply. And so here we got back a little bit of an interesting number here. So this is going to be a hex encoded version of this number here. And there's some tools out there that can reverse that. A08601. I don't know if there's one in here that does it. I don't think so. There are some tools out there that does that. Well, I'll try and find some here for the next video, and we'll hit on that instead of having to write your own code to decipher that number. But we're pretty confident that it is the right number. So, okay, so that's all I wanted to cover to get started here. We're kind of already into this. We've covered total supply, so how many tokens are deployed, the name. One thing to note here is it must always return the same value, so it's hard-coded. Symbol, short symbol, 3 to 8 characters, always return the same value. Decimals, same thing, always return the same value. Next, we're going to get into dealing with the balance of tokens and how to initialize this contract. And then after that, we'll look at the transfer, because the transfer is the more complicated bit. But okay, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, everyone.